So welcome to the Location Independence podcast. Today we have a location independent family. So this is a location for anyone who's new here. This is the Location Independence podcast. It's all about the location independence journey. I met Carla and Dani, who are our guests today. I met 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago already?
It was 2022. I actually pronounced my name Donnie. Sorry, there's like no way for you to know that. Spell it D-A-N-I.
Sorry, I've said it wrong this whole time. It's really embarrassing. Okay. So we met a few years ago at a coffee shop working remotely. For anyone who knows, like I'm always working from coffee shops because I need to get out of my house, wherever my house is. And then we had an amazing Shabbat dinner. Carla and I have hospitality in common, which was an amazing connection. And she's my hero because I think no one in hospitality likes dealing with cleaning except for Carla.
Well, yeah, I learned how to love it. Yes, it is a tough thing to do though, but yes, I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the hero thing.
So I was really surprised when I met them that they had a son who was traveling with them.
Mhm.
And so I actually in this podcast I said I need to reach out to them. I need to understand how it's going, what they're doing. And I understand that now you've switched it up a little bit. You're not living out of suitcases. You have a home and a home base and you travel from there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. We basically call our home Majorca, where we have our apartment. But pretty much once a year, we go traveling for anywhere from a month or 2 months to up to 9 months, basically. So we rent our apartment out here where we live, and so that way we have all of our expenses covered, and then we work remotely while we're traveling.
That's amazing. And I want to get into your remote work. But first, I want to talk about and I think this is part of it. How did you decide to start living or the location independent lifestyle? How did you decide to start with that?
Well, I think it was pretty much a number of things. One would be having a small child and a pandemic. And I think with those two things converging, we knew that we wanted to take 2022 as like a Shemitah year. Shemitah in Hebrew means like a sabbatical, like a time for renewal. And so we knew that with the pandemic upon us, we weren't able to, travel for at least a year or two. And we also knew that with our son, Oren, when he was going to be 5 years old, 6 years old, it was not going to be really viable for us to take him out of school for like an extensive period of time. So basically, three objectives were set out between Carla and myself when we planned this 9-month trip through the States and through Latin America. We wanted to share our documentary film that we made with people with different communities all over Latin America. And we can talk about the documentary film later. We wanted to research and investigate a new documentary series, which had to do with us going to Latin America and doing our research and investigation there. And third, we wanted to take time just to be together as a family and be in the place where we live and where we also work and where we're community leaders. And like, we just had a lot of distraction, I think, going on in 2021. So when 2022 came, we definitely said, okay, our son is 3 years old. Now is a great time to like just go traveling for a number of months and see how it goes.
And you did it. And in the end, how long did you travel? Was it only the 9 months?
Yeah, it was 9 months, I think, of travel.
Yeah, he
Total.
will say 9, I will say 10, because we left Mallorca, but then we stopped to be with my family back in the mainland. So it was about 20 days, which doesn't count because we were still in Spain. But then, yeah, it became around 10 months trip, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. So tell me, so that answers my first question. I said, but I think when I met you, your son was in daycare, right? He was in like an international school.
Yes.
I think he was in a Jewish day school, right?
Yeah, in Recife, and it was in a diverse school. that happened to be the Jewish school of the city. And through contacts, and it's a big community when you travel around the world. If you can be easily connected to people that understand you. So the school opened up the option of signing in Oren for a month, and we both thought it was amazing because he will be learning Portuguese. Also, he will be socializing with other kids. It will give me a little bit of time to set up our lives in Brazil. And yeah, it was amazing, the fact that we could sign in for him for a full month.
Did he learn Portuguese? Was he speaking Portuguese?
Yeah. He came home singing a song in Portuguese, and I speak to Oren in Catalan, which is what we speak here in Spain, in Catalonia, Islas Baleares. And Danny was like, "What is he singing?" And he's like, "I don't know, it's Portuguese." And he's like, "Oh, I thought it was Catalan." So yeah, he learned in 2-3 days how to say good morning, good afternoon, that he was hungry, and a few other little words. Let's don't forget, he was 3, so it's not that he was like his speech wasn't like it's now, so but yeah, he learned Portuguese, and definitely the teachers referred to him in Portuguese, sometimes in English, and he didn't have any issue.
It's amazing. That's really cool.
It is one of the benefits of traveling.
Yeah, I think I look back to my first, I guess I was 7 on my first international trip, so a little bit older. Okay, so going back to that, so like I said at the beginning, when I met you, we met at a coffee shop. You were working. You were trying to get some work done, and like we connected. And then you're like, I have to focus on my work. Good to have met you. So when you're traveling, how do you manage like your work-life balance? Do you still maintain working hours? What does it look like for both of you?
I think when we're traveling, I do a lot of virtual tours. So meaning like this, we'll be on a Zoom, and I'll have one of our tour guides in Taiwan or Australia or Alaska, presenting the past, present of their Jewish community to different communities around the world. And so I'm kind of managing that. So I basically just need like a quiet place without distraction. Otherwise, I'm like doing emails or creating budgets, that type of stuff where I'm not on camera, basically. And in terms of life work balance, I think, I had a schedule when, these virtual tours were coming up, and I tried to overload if I had a lot of meetings. If I had one meeting on Wednesday, then I knew that on Wednesday I would like to plan other meetings. So I kind of had a day blocked out of like meeting after meeting after meeting. And that way, especially if Oren wasn't in school, Carla and Oren would do like an activity that day while I was working, from the Airbnb or from the apartment that we were renting, etc. And then on a Tuesday or a Thursday, I would try and keep that, blank. So I knew that we could do tourism that day. And that was when we would rent a car, or we would go by bus, and we would like go to the beach, or, I did it by like day as opposed to hours. I didn't have a 9 to 5 or even 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I basically had like a, Monday, Wednesday, Friday were days that I was going to try and work. And then Tuesday and Thursday would be like our weekend, and I don't know if we necessarily honored the idea of a weekend. I don't think Saturday and Sunday was like our off days, because we were just kind of traveling for 7 days in a row. It's true that on Friday nights we would do Shabbat with the different communities at Burgess.
And I remember you scheduling viewings for your movie, and when that was happening, I remember the previous days will be more intense, so I usually will do activities with Oren, such as visiting museums, or going to the kids park around the corner, or going to the beach if the place where we were staying had a beach, or going to the swimming pool, or we try to find places that have maybe a gym, and so Oren and I will go there to play for a couple of hours. So Yeah, or at some point when he was more busy planning his schedule, especially as I said for the viewings of the documentary, I will try to connect with the families that we met along the way. So we will do play dates or things like that. But no working hours schedule,
Just
you
kind
know?
of free flowing.
Yes, free flowing, free flowing. And
That's
it's part of the way of you have to set up your mind if you are ready to do that, because if you obviously you can have a routine if you are traveling on your own, but if you are traveling as a family, there is different needs that you have to also have in mind.
yeah. So let's talk to that. Actually, let's skip ahead a little bit. So how do you deal with? I mean, there's two of you. You both have your own lives. How do you deal with kind of the thing for me? Like I've traveled with friends, but it's like you travel 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, and at the end you're like, no, I've had enough of you. Like I can't spend any. I love you, but let's go do our own thing now. So how did that? I imagine you both, because you both work on a documentary a bit, right? So I imagine you both have like more non-traditional lives anyway. Like you're not both going to the office 9 to 5 in your day to day. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, we both do not have offices to attend to. We basically work in tourism and documentary filmmaking. That's kind of like the industry, I would say, that we're involved in.
Okay.
And answering your questions about how we deal with 24/7 life
Each other.
traveling together, it's time for everything. And it's true that for Dani and I, traveling is something that we share as a passion. I don't think it was something like, oh my God, another day with you, which eventually, you have better days and not that good days. But it always was exciting to go and visit the village next door, or, do that boat ride that will take you to that little island, or, go to that community that Dani was learning about for potential second documentary. So every day you try to set it up as an adventure. And obviously, at some point, you have friction because, or you are tired, or it's time to pack and unpack, and this is part of the traveling. It can be tough, especially when you are so movable, or we were so movable. We visit 4 countries in 6 7 months, and we were moving constantly, so you try to assign as well time together. And if we were lucky enough to connect with good people, and so because the babysitting in a place where you don't know anyone, it's a very tricky thing because you don't want to leave your son with anyone. But we found moments for Dani and I as a couple, and then Dani will take a day for do his exercise. He does triathlons, and I will take one day for shopping or for beauty time. Or Danny will, for example, in Colombia, he went 3 days for a hike to discover La Ciudad Perdida. So Oren and I, we
The
stayed.
Lost City.
Yeah, the Lost City. Stayed in a hotel, that made my life a little easier. With the toddler, 3 years old. And so when he was coming back, it was like, oh, you made it, because you could
You're like,
not,
"Here, Jesus, I'm going shopping now. Bye."
almost. But no, the first feeling was, we are happy to see you, because let's face it, we were traveling through third world countries. And, some of the activities that Danny did were kind of adventurous. So it was good that he was back home,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add also that we tried to like create diversity. So Carla in Ecuador, had a cooking class that she had to do online, so we were renting it from an Airbnb. And so we took the Zoom camera and we put her microphone on. And so she like did the cooking class of like the Spanish omelet, for, I think it was like another Jewish day school in somewhere in the United States. So a lot of this was like COVID time. So, people wearing masks, we had to have all of our vaccines in order to travel to and from. So there, like that, I think it's important to put that into context, like when this 9-month, 10-month trip was,
Right.
So there was a lot more online work that we were doing, versus something like this past year, we went away for 4 months. Similar thing. We rented an apartment here. And people don't realize that. Like, people have a lot of monthly expenses that you just don't realize that when you get covered, you suddenly, to travel, especially if you're staying with friends and using friends, separate cars, etc., like, getting help from family and friends. I know this is going to sound crazy for you to hear. It actually can be cheaper on a monthly budget traveling rather than your normal lives living at home. And I think people hear, oh, you're traveling, oh, you must be a millionaire, you don't have any financial concerns. And no, that's not the issue at all. We actually were able to save better while traveling. And there's this opportunity to like see great friends and see family that you wouldn't normally get to do. Like, we have our lives here. So when someone comes to visit us in Majorca, we can't necessarily just drop what we're doing and spend 4 days with them. I mean, obviously it's our parents. We may be exceptions, but we get a lot of visitors. And so, yeah, they hear an evening there, dinner, whatever. But we're not like, unfortunately, we're not working from the beach all the time, here in Majorca.
You're not?
Contrary to popular opinions. The other thing that's super important, I would recommend, is if everyone has like their certain roles and you try and stick to that. So, for example, Carla, as you said earlier, works in hospitality. She was like the Airbnb and or hotel queen, like any like accommodations like she dealt with. And to be honest, I think I don't even like looked at where we were going. I just obviously have 125 million% trust in Carla that, anywhere we were going to go, if it works for her, it's going to work for us. But we did stay in a very, very, very small studio for about a month in Recife, right before we met you, actually.
Oh man.
We just moved. Yeah, not the place that you got to see. That was kind of a nice place that we were in. But and then I would do the flights, and kind of be in charge of general expenses. And so yeah, we each had kind of our different roles. And I think when you're a family unit, and especially a couple, it's good to have those defined, so everyone feels, not only validated, but they're obviously like they have certain things that they're in charge of to make the experience, positive and successful.
Yeah, and actually, I want to highlight really quickly, Carla. I remember you telling me that you loved packing. Is that still true?
Still true. Still true.
That's crazy.
Because Dani doesn't love it, so needs to be true. But no, it is something that I love to do because I am very particular, and it's the only way that I will remember where we have everything we are packing. So, and yes, I like to pack. And after 9 months packing and unpacking, and those last 4 months packing and unpacking, I told Dani, all right, if we are doing it again, because no doubt we are going to do it again, I would like to do it for extensive period of time, or because we are moving from Majorca to another place, because at some point it's exhausting, and especially when you are doing it every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
All the things for one kid and 2 adults. And then you also learn a lot, by the way, how much you don't need half of it, like I always try to pack very little. And even though after traveling, it's like, and half of it, I didn't need it. So, and it's a very good exercise because, yeah, along the way, you buy a couple of things that you might need at this moment, but otherwise, 6 stops, full underwear, a couple of pants, something to, more casual, smart, and that's it. Good shoes, and you are done and ready to travel,
Yeah, I think that's something that I also talk about a lot on Nomadic Hotelier. I don't know if you follow me actually, but it's something that I talk about, which is that like if you're, it's going to force you. I remember when I first started traveling, I had a backpack, a suitcase, and a duffel bag, and I think I traveled for 6 months like this, and after 6 months, I was like, no, I'm getting rid of the duffel bag. So I pared down to a backpack, like regular size backpack, and a carry-on bag. And I was like, if it doesn't fit in this, I don't get to keep it. And it helped me decide like what I really needed, because I didn't want to. I don't know if you've ever done one of those. I've so many changeovers where it's literally going to take you 6 hours, or you're going to have to apply for a visa if you go pick up your checked bag at an airport. And so it's
Yeah.
like Istanbul airport is really good for this. Like, like forget it. It's adding an extra 6 hours to your travel time if you have to pick up a checked bag and check it back in. So I said, no, like I'm just traveling with a carry-on. It must fit in the carry-on. I think it's one of the more helpful things is that I realized actually I don't need so much.
Totally.
You're totally on the same page as my parents, who refuse to travel with any checked luggage after they've had their luggage lost, X amount of times, and they're just like, no, we're traveling for 2 weeks. We're going with a carry-on, and they're gonna do laundry, and they're gonna figure it out, but for different reasons.
Yeah. Although I assume it's a little bit more difficult with a child, but I will say before I let you even answer that, I traveled with I met a really amazing woman traveling, and she travels with her daughter, with her 8-year-old, and between the two of them they have 2 backpacks, and that's it. That's all they have. So,
Yeah.
and they're full-time nomads, and they go I think on like the trip that you were doing and the style that I normally do, they would go 6 months at a time. So they would like kind of arrive, buy all the shampoo, everything that they needed, and then they would leave it behind and go to the next place. Whereas I'm going a month at a time, and so it doesn't make sense to like buy the shampoo and the face wash and everything each time. But yeah.
I was just
So
gonna say that I think for our son, similar, like everyone needs to have their own thing. So he had like, right, Carla, like a backpacker by himself, like with just toys and books and stuff like that, Not that he used it necessarily that much. I remember being a little bit bummed. I'm like, dude, you're lugging this around all over Latin America, and you're not even like reading the books or playing with the things inside. And I mean, it's there. It has its challenges, like without having a child that's not in school, you need to be on 24/7. And there were times where we had to put the TV on and watch a movie. I think we must have watched Frozen God knows how many millions of times on that trip. But there, the times that we didn't have him in some kind of program or school obviously were more complicated. We were very blessed and very lucky to have at least 2, maybe even 3 experiences where we were able to like put him into some kind of schooling or program that he was able to meet other kids his age. I think he's an only child, so for him wanting to socialize was very important.
did you find that he wasn't using his books and toys because he was like connecting and immersing locally and learning so much in that way and being stimulated that way, or he just simply wanted new toys when he showed up?
To be honest, we were out of the house like the entire day. It was Red and Oren and I, we stayed in. And so, yeah, he could carry maybe a couple of cars or something like that, but everything was more exciting than what he had on his backpack. Actually, the backpack, we were using it more for airport time, waiting and, while flying. It was more all rainy days, then you had to stay home. But otherwise, he will be more exciting about meeting a new kid on the park or going to the beach than playing with his toys.
See, that's amazing. And that's it. We're talking about all of the like logistics, but actually this is precisely why you travel, and this is why you travel
Exactly.
with your kids.
Yes.
Because it
Yeah. I will jump in and say, I mean, granted, he comes from both myself and Carla, and we're both very like sociable people, and we love being around people. So I'm sure that he gets a lot from there. But I will venture to say that our experiences of traveling for months at a time and going from country to country and just meeting new people constantly has really made our son very sociable, and like, you know, we can go anywhere and like he'll just be comfortable, and
plug right
he
in.
gets a little shy at the beginning when he sees the people, but within like seconds, you know, especially if there's like good chemistry and there's like another toddler or child around, he fits in really quickly.
That's amazing. So you let's get into we saved the best part for last, but actually it's not true. I wanna have a wrap up with some tips for other families, but I would like to. So you took this journey, and I think you decided you wanted to travel. If I understand correctly, you decided you wanted to travel, and then you're like, well, if I'm gonna be traveling, I needed a reason to travel, so we're gonna promote the documentary. And when I met you, you were on the first documentary. You've now, or you will soon have, part two of the documentary released. Tell me a little bit about that, because I remember being absolutely fascinated.
Yeah, so it's so funny how we actually met. What was it? You were like next to me, and how did we begin talking? Do you remember? Because I remember.
I think because you were, I heard you on a phone call, and I was like, another American.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like,
You're like, what are
because
you
I
doing
just,
here?
yeah, no, we were both in Recife, the north of Brazil. There's not a lot of Americans out there. It's
No,
not a place that Americans go to. It's not on the tourist map for most people, actually. And so I was like, what are you doing here?
totally.
um,
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then I think we just started talking and like, yeah, started sharing a little bit about what both of us were up to. I will correct you though. The whole inspiration for this big trip was actually a wedding. We had a very good friend who lives here in Mallorca, who's from Colombia/Venezuela, and she was doing her, yeah, I guess destination wedding. She lives here in Mallorca, in Cartagena in Colombia, which Carla had been to a number of times because her mother lived there for a little bit. So that was kind of inspiration. We were kind of like, okay, February 2022, we know we're going to Cartagena for our friend's wedding. You know, instead of just going for 7 days, why don't we go for 7 months? And then 7 months just turned into 9 months, 10 months, and it just kind of, you know,
I'm
developed.
quoting you on that. Instead of going for 7 days, why don't we go for 7 months?
Put it in the code book. It's
And I remember when he came to me and he said, what about if we do a sabbatical year? And I looked at him and I was like, what do you mean by a sabbatical year? It's like, yeah, pack everything and go. And you know, pandemic, huh? And I was like, give me a second. Okay, let's do this.
she didn't have to think too
I'm
long.
on board.
Yeah. So
Basically.
yeah.
And so I think 2020 was like obviously the drop, like when the pandemic happened. 2021, we were still scraping and surviving, you know, doing virtual tours, and also just finishing touches on our first documentary. We pretty much edited it during 2020, during the pandemic, and then it would have been released, I think, in December of 2021. So January of 2022, ironically, it was doing a big film festival run through the United States. But that was a big deal, Carla. Remember? I actually remember very clearly being like, okay, let's go to where it's warm. I remember that. Like, okay, we don't want to be here in the winter. Not that Mallorca is super cold.
No, but it's miserable.
It's damn.
It's dark.
There's no heating. The days are short. Yeah,
100%.
everyone underestimates Europe in winter. It's not nice.
Totally. And so we were like, let's go to South America. Let's go to the Southern Hemisphere. And so and I knew that with the pandemic, I was only really booking a lot of virtual screenings where like this, like, all right, we were going to show the movie on a link, and then people were going to like be on their computers, and then it was going to be a Q&A like this. And I really missed the opportunity. Like, this was our first documentary film. We wanted to like in a space physically with other people where we could watch the film and then like talk about it and get questions like right there. So there was this, like I said, double, motive of sharing the film with people that would connect to the story. So our film was about the Bnei Anusim, the descendants, the Catholic descendants of the Jewish Conversos of Majorca Island. So there were like, medieval Jews living here in the island, and then they were forcibly converted. So they became what's called crypto Jews, which are not Jews that work in cryptocurrency. People think so. It's actually secret Jews, right? So people who are Christian on the outside, but secretly practicing Judaism on the inside of their homes. And then their descendants are what's called chuetas. It's a kind of an insult to describe, people with Jewish roots, only from Majorca. And they have certain last names. They've been married with these same families for 400, 500 years, only until recently, where it's not become a taboo anymore or a stigma. So we made this film here, and then I got word and heard that a similar phenomenon was happening in places like Colombia, maybe in Ecuador, Brazil for sure, Mexico. So it was like this kind of journey, this hunt, this interest of finding other communities that were called comunidades emergentes, emerging communities, usually evangelical Christian churches that were kind of disenfranchised and tired of the whole Christianity thing. And they wanted to connect to Judaism, either because they believe they have Jewish roots or just because they believe that that's the truth or the right religion or whatever
Way
it
to go,
is.
yeah.
And so then these group of people were going to the Jewish communities located in Bogota, Sao Paulo, Recife, and knocking on the door and being like, hey, we're interested in maybe converting or at least learning. Can we come in? And especially in Latin American countries, the Jewish communities are very small, total minority. And it's they don't have a whole lot of, support, barely enough for themselves. So to welcome in and focus in on people who are outside of the faith who want to learn isn't, obviously a deep priority or a high priority for them. They're more focused on their members that they already have. So they kind of, unfortunately, people who want to come in, especially when there's a lot of them, are told, so sorry, here's a couple books. If you want to keep reading, good luck, maybe come back later when we can help you more, something like that. So a lot of these communities end up being autodidactic. Is that a word in English? I know it is in Spanish. They basically teach themselves, also connecting with rabbis in other parts of the world, on YouTube or virtually, and they basically form their own communities. And so we would go and spend Shabbat and spend, Friday to Saturday with these communities that were just 5, 10, maybe up to 20 years, I would say, is the oldest one. Totally, churches that are now Orthodox Jewish communities. And it was wild. And it was cool because one weekend we'd go to the traditional community and another weekend we'd go to the emerging community. And it was so fascinating to get to see this phenomenon in real time, to share the film, which talks to this phenomenon, but happening in Majorca, and see a lot of people connecting with the story. And 3, of course, we've got my trusty, really fancy movie camera, and do interviews and film. And even in a couple places like Brazil and Mexico, we hired a professional camera person and audio to travel with us and to do interviews and to visit these communities, visit the synagogues and whatnot. So in a way, we were doing casting for the next documentary series, research, investigation, a bit of filming, where we now have our trailers. We have 4 different trailers from Brazil, Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia. And this past December, we actually went to Puerto Rico, where I have family that I've grown up with, my whole life. My aunts and uncle and cousins, live in Puerto Rico, that are Jewish as well. And we went to my cousin's wedding. And so from our cousin's wedding, we also did interviews with all the different Jewish communities in Puerto Rico and found an emerging community and got to interview them and speak to them. And it was mind blowing because a lot of the traditional communities didn't even know that this emerging community in the mountains existed. So it was a really cool bringing together. And we're about to put the finishing touches on that first episode of Reemerge Project, episode number 1, Puerto Rico. So that's a little bit of the background with that project.
And I'm going to put in the show notes, I'm going to put the link, but for anyone who's listening only, what is the name of the series?
So the original film, the 1 hour long documentary film, is called Chueta Island, and
And
that's
how do you spell that?
it's Xueta. So Chueta
Xueta.
is with an X. It's like a ch sound in the local language here. So yeah, Xueta Island, Chueta Island, themovie.com is our website, and you can rent the documentary film via our website and check it out that way. We're also about to have our Israeli premiere at the Anu Museum of the Jewish People in Tel Aviv. So that's coming up September 19th. We've already screened in Brazil, in Germany, in France, in the UK, in the United States, all over Latin America, of course. It was kind of fun. Every time we visited a new place, we're like, and this is the premiere of Ecuador, of Colombia. So that was exciting. So yeah, so that film's done and ready to go, and available for anyone who'd like to see it. And our second project, which is a documentary series, it's actually kind of like a mini series, probably going to be around 20 to 30-minute episodes, where we want to go to 9 different places. Am I fitting this thing here? Yeah, there's 9 places, which is basically Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, which are the 4 places we've already been to, Puerto Rico, and then Peru, New Mexico, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. So those are the 9 places that we've kind of honed out as having, different stories in each of these places having to do with people who, would have escaped from the Inquisition in Spain and Portugal and made it to Latin America, where, they had Jewish roots and then, became Christianized because it was the only way to survive, basically. And now, centuries later, in places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Santa Fe, New Mexico, people do Roman Catholic families, very Catholic families, do Jewish practices, and they don't know why. They don't know why they light candles on Friday night. They don't know why they cover mirrors when someone dies. Like, there's these kind of Jewish traditions that they just have in their family because their mother did it, their grandmother did it, their great grandmother did it, and now because of technology like the internet and just democracy and not as much dictatorship or pressure from the Catholic Church, people are able to connect to these Jewish roots, and it's really inspiring to be able to make film projects that can kind of open up people's worlds. We've got a lot of beautiful emails of people saying, wow, I had no idea about this, but when I saw the film, I remember this from my family, and now I'm talking to a genealogist, and I might get a Spanish passport, and it really has a lot of impact, and that we believe strongly in doing impact filmmaking. We're not just making a pretty story. We want to actually help people by telling these stories that, may not necessarily be very well known.
So I'm guessing we are going into another 9-month trip.
Another 9-month trip.
Sometime soon.
So tell me, so you're going into your next journey. I assume you'll tackle less this time. What else? And let's try and frame this, because there are people, there are traveling families who are listening to this. We're like, can we do it? Can we not do it? Are we going to kill each other? Is it going to be the end of our marriage? As you prepare for it, and as you give advice to other couples or families that are preparing for this, what is your advice to them and to yourself?
I would just jump in and say, be on the same page with what are your objectives. I don't know if you remember, Carla, but we talked at length about the reasons for doing this trip. It was to reconnect as a family, because we felt like with the pandemic and with having a child, like our family unit had, grown far apart. And so to cut out all of the distractions in our life, it was like, no, let's spend quality time together for several months on end and really enjoy that time together. I remember growing up, from my own experience, like my father would work, he'd leave at 6 a.m. and come home at 8 p.m. And the times that I remember, like the best times of my childhood, were like our vacations, when we go to Puerto Rico or when we go to Israel, like as a family. And so I just felt like time was flying by in our, home base, where we were working, son was going to school or daycare. And it was just the day in, day out. And I felt like, oh my God, I'm losing our son's childhood. How cool would it be to like travel for 4 months, or travel
because
for
believe
9
it or
months?
not, we were in pandemic, so we were spending a lot of hours at home, but we had to survive, right? Because I wasn't any longer working for hotel industry. Dani just created a company for cultural tours, in-person cultural tours. And all of a sudden, no one was, no one was flying into the island. No one was consuming anything to do with leisure or tourism. And so we didn't have any sort of income. So that was, a very challenging time for Dani and I, because we had to somehow reinvent what we had and bring it up to the cloud. We were spending a lot of hours indoors, but we were not talking to each other because I was trying to raise a 1-year-old kid, and Danny was trying to generate some income, and I was trying to figure out what's going to be me after all that madness. So when Danny came with that idea, obviously we were going for a wedding, but behind that, it was that intention of reconnecting as family, and to do not forget who we were and how much we like to travel. That was, it was very risky, but it was something that we wanted to do. And we didn't have any issue with our luggage. We didn't get sick. We didn't get any, any estafa. No flight delays. All the apartments we rented out or hotels I booked, they were as good as they were presented on the website. Everyone was extremely kind. Everyone was willing to reconnect with humans. And so we got a very good benefit out of coming out from a pandemic. And I will say, for that people that it's thinking about doing it, is yes, you can. It's not that difficult. You can definitely, I don't know.
Wait, I'm going to stop you. It is difficult.
It is difficult.
It's just not impossible.
It is not impossible. You are right.
Yeah.
It is difficult. It's not impossible. You just have to think how you want to live for the following year, or for the following 4 months, 6 months, 9 months. And then if you can cover your fixed expenses, like renting out your place, or putting a friend that maybe would like to live in your place, so he or she has also an experience out of your traveling. And so if you can cover your fixed expenses, and then I will do a realistic budget. I will talk to other digital nomads. Now there are many websites or articles or podcasts like this one that can give you. And then just try to do a little bit of an itinerary and keep your mind flexible. It's like, if you are going to do it, do not push yourself. By this day, I have to be there. So try to, buy your tickets with enough time, and then go with the flow, and have your budget. Think about it, and try to, if you can work online, obviously, this is something that only people that work online will enjoy it. I think so. Or if you are brave enough, you can, just try to find a job, whatever you are moving, and now it's a big community of travelers, so a lot of sharing is going on. So I don't know, that will be my tip.
I was just going to highlight, because Dani, I didn't mention this then, but like you hired videographers wherever you went. It's not like you had your crew that you were carrying with you. Like you tapped into local resources. So your job isn't entirely online, but you made it work like in person wherever you were.
True. And so I'm a producer by trade. Like I have 20 years of producing TV commercials like all around the world, mainly in Miami and New York. So I had that, as something to lean into as well. But I'm not gonna lie, like being in prep, preparing to shoot for what you're going to, wherever you're going, what location you're going to go to next, being in the place and trying to film, and then even managing some post-production and like make sure that it's editing, like being in the 3 stages of a production all the time is definitely, hectic and stressful and all of the above. And also trying to spend time with your family. So I 100% agree with you. It's not impossible, but it definitely can be stressful and can be difficult. But I think when you tap into, again, what it is, why you're doing all of this. I mean, for Carla and I, we love adding places to our list of places that we've seen. Like, we really just love going to new places. And so the other things I was going to add is that have a wedding to go to, because that seems to be our tradition. We did the wedding in Colombia and then the wedding in Puerto Rico, and then those were send-offs. And maybe that has something, maybe there's something there, because we knew that we were already going to spend like a lot of money to get from Spain to Colombia, a lot of money to get from Spain to Puerto Rico. So like, are we going to go there just for the weekend? Are we going to go there just for a week? Like, no, let's like make our money that we're investing in this, go as long as it can go. And the other thing I wanted to add, and Carla kind of spoke to it, is that we live in such a globalized world. Like, you can talk to anyone, everywhere, anywhere, through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through Instagram. Like, we're so connected. Tap into your community, whatever your community is. If you're a lacrosse player, like, find the lacrosse players in Alaska when you're going there. If you're a mime, we have to be very involved and deep into the world of the Jewish communities. And so we would always, reach out to where we were going and say in advance, hey, we're coming during these dates. Could we put our son in the school? Could we come to the synagogue to meet other community members? Can you connect us to someone who's doing filmmaking in your community that maybe they can help me with leads? So that's very important in terms of preparation work. Like when you discover and know where you're going to go, start to make those connections online, because people really get excited when they hear that you're in from out of town and you're doing this crazy digital nomad life. And to reiterate, Carla, like, being very flexible, like, we haven't shared this with you yet, but after October 7th, we were really concerned what was going on in the world, with a lot of anti-Semitic violence taking place. In Spain, we were kind of nervous. And so, much to Carla and I had disagreements on this, but I was like, there's no way I'm going to book 4 months of flights when at any point we might need to just get out of Los Angeles, or we might need to leave Atlanta, or whatever. And so we did this crazy thing. It's literally crazy, where we didn't book our flights until we got to the place where we were going. I guess other people do it.
That's how I live.
True, but people don't realize that. People think, oh no, I got to book my flight 6 months in advance, 8 months in advance, because that'll be the cheapest ticket. Yes and no. I mean, with Puerto Rico, I think it would have been better had we booked it, months in advance. But once we went from Puerto Rico to Atlanta to New Mexico to LA, we bought those tickets, days before we took those flights, and you'd be shocked. Like, the prices were not exorbitant. They were more or less what we would have paid, because we did the research 7 months, 8 months beforehand. And of course, being flexible, we sadly, had a death in the family, so we had to turn things around, and we were not going to continue our all around the world trip this past time. We were in Australia and visit friends in New Zealand, then go to Indonesia, and then I think Thailand, whatever, and then basically back to Spain. We kind of stopped at Hawaii, and we turned around and went back to visit my family in New York, and then to visit Carla's family in Barcelona. So being flexible is, I would say, rule number one when you're on the road. Like, you really just have to be okay when things don't go your way and things don't happen the way they're supposed to happen. And as long as you can just adapt and pivot and innovate, then you'll see that, things always end up working out.
Amazing. So I'm just going to summarize it. So pack light, be flexible, find your local community. Do I have those 4 correct?
And say thank you.
Budget.
I make a budget. and be aware what you're about to say. And once you're ready, say thank you to yourself, to give yourself that opportunity, because it's amazing. It changed your life.
Amazing. Yeah. It's changed everything for me. I'm not the same person as I was when I started this. 100%. Thank you both so much. Anything else that you want to share before we go?
Just that open invitation to anyone listening or checking out the podcast, that our doors are always open. We love hosting people to visit. Even when we're on the road, when we're in someone else's Airbnb, we're inviting Michelle over for Friday night dinner. So there is this open invitation to find us online.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Michelle,
and
by the
also
way.
if someone's looking for the website, because you're still doing tours in Mallorca, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And what is the website for that?
That's called Jewish Majorca. We spell it with a J, although you can find us with 2 L's as well. Majorca, Majorca, Majorca. So jewishmajorca.com. It's our website that's fully up and running. You can get in touch with us there. We do virtual tours, we do in-person tours, we do audio downloaded tours. We have a whole bunch of options for you to learn about the story, whether you're actually here in Majorca or if you're in some other part of the world. So very excited to share
Beautiful.
Thank you both so much. It's a pleasure.
that. You're very
We'll see you
welcome.
soon.
Thanks for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. Take
Thank
care,
you,
Michelle.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.